So now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Carolina Sternberg, who is the chair of Latin American and Latino Studies, who is going to introduce our panelists.
Thank you, Peter. Good afternoon, everyone, and buen provecho. I hope you're enjoying your lunch, and it's great to see you all here. Such amazing symposium. I only spent the morning listening to amazing and beautiful talk by Dr. Ferguson, and I had to teach, so I'm coming back. It's gonna be a little bit back and forth, but such a great pleasure to introduce you all to our Graduate Student Fellows, STRC Graduate Student Fellows. And our first presenter is Laura Carvajal. She is a second-year grad student in the Masters of Critical Ethnic Studies here at DePaul University. She earned a BA in Political Science with a minor in Latin American Latino Studies, and another one in French, all from also DePaul University. Her master's thesis project titled "Coloring the Colorist," or is a tentatively titled that way, in her master's thesis, she critically analyzes the effects of anti-Haitinismo or anti-Haitianism on education, gender colorism, and social colorism. In addition, she explores how anti-Haitianism has coded darker-skinned Dominicans and Haitians as inferior to white-passing Dominicans in all aspects of life. By using a qualitative approach through fieldwork in the Dominican Republic and Haiti, she also analyzes primary and secondary sources from UC Santa Barbara and University of Florida archives. Laura's work aims to understand the profound barrier that proximity to Blackness and anti-Haitianism brings into countries and communities. Outside of academia, she's an operations supervisor of JP Morgan Chase and co-president of Global Relates at DePaul. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Laura Carvajal.
Alrighty, I just want to say thanking you all for allowing me to present my research today. So again, my name is Laura Carvajal, and I will be presenting part of the first chapter of my master's thesis titled Escaping Anti-Haitinismo, What It Means to Be Black in the Dominican Republic. Yo soy blanca oscura. Time and time again was the trauma defense phrase that I would shout at my family when the words negra, haitiana, and prieta rolled off their lips so effortlessly. You see, to them it was funny and innocent, but to me it was a constant reminder that I am darker and I am not like them. And somehow, some way, my genes decided to pull towards Haiti more than the Dominican Republic. Navigating my sense of self in relation to my racial identity has been a persistent challenge. I have grappled with the need to reaffirm my own beauty and worthiness, all while acknowledging that I am perceived as conventionally attractive in the U.S. and the Dominican Republic. Along with it has been disheartening to see the geopolitical tensions between the Dominican Republic and Haiti, engaged in confrontations over resources, often resorting to violence and displaying a disturbing disregard for human life. Anti-Haitianismo is the prejudice or social discrimination against Haitians and dark-skinned Dominicans in the Dominican Republic. Anti-Haitianismo includes, but is not limited to, prejudice, hatred, and systematic discrimination against Haitians. Personal prejudice among Dominicans have manifested into disliking Haitians' French accented Spanish, their physical appearance, lifestyle, culture, and most damningly, their blackness. Within the Latin American discourse, the Dominican Republic is understood as a brown nation with European, indigenous Taino, and African influences. So there is an inherent juxtaposition where Haiti is constructed as a black nation that, since its independence from France, has been economically, politically, and socially isolated from its neighbors. Much of this discrimination and hatred can be traced back to the policy of racial segregation that was instituted by the Spaniards in the Dominican Republic prior to the arrival of Europeans to the island of Hispaniola. The island of Hispaniola was divided into two sides. The Dominican Republic, as we know it today, was colonized by the Spanish, while the other side of Hispaniola, Haiti, as we know it today, was colonized by the French. It is clear that the deep-rooted anti-Haitinismo that exists on the island today can be traced back to the 16th century, but it is still alive and in full force today. Throughout this essay, I look to uncover how the effects of anti-Haitinismo have permeated the entire island of Hispaniola and has facilitated the displacement of many Afro-descended Dominicans and Haitian citizens that actively live in the Dominican Republic. I will critically analyze the effects of anti-Haitinismo concerning individualized hate, education, and social colorism. In addition, I will explore how anti-Haitianismo has made darker-skinned Dominicans and Haitians inferior to white-passing Dominicans in all sectors of their lives. Not only will the effects of anti-Haitianismo be analyzed from a social, political, and day-to-day lifestyle, but also the mental effects that anti-Haitianismo has caused many dark-skinned or visibly brown complex Dominicans and Haitians that both still live on the island, but also abroad. So for context, much of the conflict between Haiti and the Dominican Republic stems from Haitian attempts to rule the Dominican Republic that began in the 1800s under the power of the General-in-Chief Toussaint Louverture, who at the time was in charge of Saint-Domingue, what we know today as Haiti. During this time, the French ruled over the right side of Hispaniola, while the Spanish ruled over the left side. Louverture expanded into the left side of Santo Domingo. Louverture expanded into the left side of the island, expanding his control and with the intention of being able to capture the port of Santo Domingo, an important trading post that the Spanish colonizers utilized. Louverture's troops crossed over the border and captured the city in 1801. In 1809, Napoleon invaded the Dominican Republic, hoping to unite Hispaniola under the French rule. However, Dominicans rebelled against him through military intervention, the Reconquista. Santo Domingo was returned to Spanish control. In 1822, Haitian president during that time, Jean-Pierre Boyer, invaded Santo Domingo for the third time. But Boyer invaded the country with the intent of unifying the island, unlike his predecessors. To say the Spanish and Dominican Republic held a grudge was an understatement. The resentment of Haitians by the Dominican Republic was undoubtedly beginning to boil. The last of Haitian troops were driven out of the capital, Santo Domingo, on February 27, 1844, under the direct command of Juan Pablo Duarte. And that is when the Dominican Republic gained their independence. For the next century, many scholars tracked the demise in not only the economic deterioration of Haiti, but also in the cultural deterioration. The Dominican Republic completely cut Haiti off agriculturally, monetarily, and socially. After 1804, so did much of the world because of France's political power in the New World and Europe. The deep-rooted resentment of Haiti and Haitians in the Dominican Republic is now understood and maintained through a general anti-Blackness that manifests as prejudice against darker skin colors. This means that darker skin-toned people are assumed to be thieves, liars, and immigrants living without proper visas. Many people in the Dominican Republic are racially mixed with African, Taino, and European roots. Due to centuries of mixing and migration from all over the Latin world, the population is thought of as racially ambiguous. Despite there being Dominicans of entirely European descent and entirely African descent. While there are white Dominicans and Black Dominicans in the racial imaginary of Latin America and the Caribbean, the Dominican Republic is thought of as a light brown or café con leche colored country. But the history that the Dominican Republic highlights is most often whitewashed. The personal prejudice also have been used to galvanize the nation politically in the past and in the present day. This was such the reality of the Dominican Republic that Rafael Trujillo was able to take office solely based on these beliefs and ideologies. Trujillo was a Dominican dictator that reigned from 1930 to 1961. Throughout his time, he strongly contributed to the hateful cultural discourse about Haitians. In 1937, Trujillo gave the official order for a genocidal attack on Haitian people on a sugar cane field in the Dominican Republic. This massacre is known as the Massacre de Perejil, the Parsi Massacre. The Parsi Massacre was a planned genocide waged on Haitians and dark-skinned Dominicans. During the massacre, Dominican soldiers would approach individuals and demand that they pronounce the Spanish word for parsley, which is perejil. The pronunciation of the R in this word was used as a linguistic litmus test to distinguish between Haitians and Dominicans. Those who struggled with the Spanish R sound were identified as patients and subsequently subjected to merciless violence. This arbitrary criterion led to the loss of thousands of innocent lives, making it one of the darkest chapters in Caribbean history. The massacre was not only an act of extreme brutality, but also a manifestation of deeply rooted racial and cultural prejudices. Trujillo's regime exploited and exacerbated historical tensions between the Dominican Republic and Haiti. The massacre was a devastating example of how linguistic differences were weaponized to justify violence and discrimination. The effects of anti-Haitinismo and anti-Blackness are not only experienced and seen in literature. We see it in pop culture and in our day-to-day lives. Although I call on the expertise of Juno Diaz, Edwidge Donica, Omi, and Wana to help lay the foundation of racial identity, racialization, and the history of anti-Blackness in the Dominican Republic and Haiti, I also drew on Fenomano. Fenomano is a 2013 film directed by Mariana Rondon, where the protagonist, Junior, desperately wanted to straighten his hair to be able to conform to European beauty, societal norms, and standards. Junior did not want the complexities of his hair to be what people noticed when they first saw him. Junior's desire for social acceptance played a big reason for the hair straightening, and I know it has played a big reason in mine. Anti-Haitinismo has significantly influenced pop culture, perpetuating harmful stereotypes and biases that cast curly hair as unruly and untamable, just to give one example. This portrayal has led to a negative perception of natural black hair textures, contributing to internalized self-hate amongst individuals with curly hair who feel pressured to conform to Eurocentric beauty standards. Although my research is ongoing and this is only one part to a whole, anti-Haitinismo research is essential to shed light on the deeply ingrained systemic biases and prejudice that have historically oppressed Haitian communities. By delving into the origins and manifestations of anti-Haitinismo, we can gain a better understanding of how the oppressive structures operate. This knowledge empowers us to dismantle these systems and work towards racial equity, liberation, and justice. It is a critical step in challenging and ultimately eradicating the social norms and beliefs that perpetuate the inferiority of Haitians and dark-skinned Dominicans, fostering a more inclusive and equitable society for all on español and abroad. Thank you.
At the end, yeah.
Okay, another great pleasure to be introducing the second fellow presenter, Shannan Moore. She's also a second year graduate student of the Critical Studies at DePaul University. She earned an MBA in music with a minor in Blackboard Studies from Columbia College, Chicago. Her current research project, tentatively titled "A Digital Black Community Theorizing Resistance in the Wake of Racist Technology," explores identity, community, and resistance within Black diaspora in digital spaces. Her project explores ways in which new technologies and digital algorithms serve as tools for identity formation, community building, and resistance for the Black diaspora in digital spaces. In particular, she analyzes online discourses from the Black community about the Marvel films Black Panther and Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I highly recommend it to watch it if you haven't so. Outside of the academic space, she works as the digital marketing associate at Lyric Opera of Chicago. Maybe she will spare some tickets. And enjoys spending her free time creating playlists, crocheting, and binge watching her favorite shows. Please join me welcoming Shannan Moore.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for being here. My name is Shannan and I'm excited and very grateful to be presenting my research today. The paper that I'm working on is titled The Digital Black Community, Theorizing Resistance in the Wake of Racist Technology, which is a part of a larger creative thesis that explores the Black diaspora in digital spaces. Next slide, please. Thank you. Drawing from previous scholarship about Black folks in digital spaces, this paper analyzes cultural discourse from the Black diaspora on Twitter about the Marvel films Black Panther and Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Using a historical link to Maroon communities, I show how these discourses shape transnational identity, community, and resistance in Black digital spaces. Next slide, please. Cornell West defined identity as the interplay of desire, which is the yearning for recognition, association, and protection, and death, what we'd be put to death for or what we are willing to die for. In the context of Black identity, this desire for recognition, association, and protection is intimately connected to the things we are killed for and sacrifice our lives for, both figuratively and literally. This relationship is apparent when looking at the formation of Maroon communities. While Maroon communities exhibited a combination of African, Indigenous, and European cultures and peoples, their foundations were inherently African. As a result, most of these community members identified with self-liberated Africans fleeing from the realities of colonial slavery in the Americas. Risking death, they sought recognition from and association with others like them and protection from slave societies, going as far as waging pseudo-wars against impeding colonists and killing fellow Maroons, putting their communities at risk. Throughout history, the specific issues faced globally by Africans and those of African descent have evolved, but we still find ways to identify with each other in the context of the times. Today, we are witnessing a similar formation of a transnational Black identity on Twitter, I still call it Twitter, on a Black scale that would be challenging without digital technology. Black Panther allowed this phenomenon to continue on Twitter, enabling Black people around the world to engage in discussions about the movie. Next slide. A notable example is the viral hashtag created by Kayla Marie from Black Girl Nerds, hashtag what Black Panther means to me. This hashtag included countless stories and images of Black Twitter users about the impact Black Panther had on us. We were able to watch a, quote, all-Black cast being centered in Blackness without being victim to it. It not only allowed us to identify and see ourselves on the movie screen, but also identify with each other online. It became a cathartic and healing space to share our collective identity that has historically been weaponized for our oppression. We use the unprecedented success of an Afrocentric Marvel film to discuss our own agency and reclaim a Black identity as a source of pride, purpose, and community. Next slide, please. Evidently, identity cannot exist in isolation. It intertwines with others who share the same or similar identities. In a society where Black folk are faced with deadly consequences due to our identity, we establish predominantly Black safe spaces as places of relief from an oppressive world. Here is where we sift through narratives placed on us and determine our authentic selves. As we continue to evolve our understanding of what it means to be Black alongside others on a similar journey, it is expected that our differences show up. Internal community tension was not absent in Maroon communities, despite them having similar goals. These were spaces where Africans of various national, ethnic, and cultural backgrounds came together to work toward creating a society for themselves that exists outside of the slave system. Given this variety of thought, everyone was not always on the same page about how to go about achieving their collective goals. This can also be seen on Black Twitter. Any frequent user of Black Twitter is aware of the concept of diaspora wars, which are cross-cultural debates among the Black diaspora. These discourses can range from lightheartedly poking fun at what country makes the best jollof rice, which I would say Liberian because that's the right answer, to more severe conversations that perpetuate internalized anti-Blackness. Operating in a transnational digital space comes with the tensions of cultures and ideas that we hold. Discourse about Black Panther highlights this contention, particularly as people respond to the character Eric Killmonger, T'Challa's long-lost cousin from Compton, Los Angeles. As a child, Killmonger's father, Njobu, was sentenced to death by his brother T'Chaka for helping Wakandan war criminal Cloud steal vibranium, leaving Killmonger alone without family in the United States. Filled with vengeance, Killmonger makes his way to Wakanda to reclaim his birthright to the throne and use the supernatural resources of Wakanda to aid in ending the global oppression of Black folk. Next slide, please. This sparked online debate from many perspectives, notably from African Americans resonating with the story of Killmonger. Understanding the feeling of betrayal by people who they believe had communal or familial ties to you, along with a disconnect from the culture and upbringing you would or should have grown up in. The hashtag Killmonger was right was used to discuss some of the reasons why they believed Killmonger was justified in his approach to avenge his father's death and make strides towards global liberation of Black folk. One thread outlines a number of reasons, some including problematizing Wakanda's lack of aid toward Black people, dealing with oppression, characterizing the nation as, quote, selfish, elitist Black folk, who for a very long time turned their back on Black folk and were okay with Black folk suffering so long as they can maintain their privileged way of life. Despite understanding the feelings that fueled Killmonger's anger, some users, particularly Black women and femmes, could not ignore his hyper-masculine approach. One user points out that Nakia and Killmonger had similar goals, but the difference was that, quote, Nakia's vision was not powered by vengeance, the thirst for world domination, and not backed by military and CIA training. Another thread began in response to Christopher LeBron's 2018 Boston Review article, Black Panther is not the movie we deserve. While in agreement that division is present between African and African American communities, the user claims that the title's use of we is exclusive of Africans and clashes US and African attempts of Black liberation against each other. Since colonialism operates on a divide and conquer strategy, any attempt that hits the Black American cause with African post-colonial efforts does more harm than good. These discussions compel us to reflect on the concept of a Black community and what we owe to one another. Here we are reckoning with the past and the present as descendants of enslaved people in the United States grapple with what roles some Africans may have played in the slave trade and vice versa. Twitter provides us with the opportunity to engage with ideas from Black individuals who share similar backgrounds but may have diverse perspectives due to their national, regional, or cultural upbringings. Although our perspectives are not always in agreement, it is evident that the liberation, safety, and success of Black folk in a violently anti-Black world is at the root of this discourse and discourses like it. At the end of the day, our communal practices prove that our dedication to improving the lives of Black folk are present, even if and when we are at odds with each other. Next slide, please. Black folks' everyday use of Twitter allows us to confront the psychological impacts of colonialism and global anti-Blackness. As the effects of European colonialism operate twofold, Black Twitter users respond to both colonization, which Sylvia Tamale defines as the political economic exploitation, and coloniality, which is the psychological ramifications of colonialism. On top of being a place where Black people are combating external systemic issues, from discourse about media representations of the Baltimore uprising following the death of Freddie Gray, to racial injustice in post-apartheid South Africa, our everyday use of the app decenters whiteness, allowing us the autonomy to define who we are as individuals and a collective. The immense act of fleeing from enslavers is an undeniable form of resistance toward the slave system, but the continuous decision to exist outside of that system is a type of resistance that is too often overlooked. Quote, maroonage is neither reducible to fleeing from states nor to movement within state borders. It is perpetual flight from slavery and an economy of survival. The absence of a struggle to survive on the landscape would mean that we have never experienced the process of becoming free in the first place, end quote. After the initial flight, maroons choose their freedom daily, lessening the power of enslavers. In a world where our existence is hyper-focused on our relationships to whiteness, it is crucial that we are able to operate outside of that for our own liberation. Portraying an all-Black society untouched by colonialism and whiteness, Black Panther allows Black folk to conceptualize a version of this as our reality. This form of resistance is an ongoing project as we figure out what is or isn't important to us as a community that white supremacy and colonialism do not directly inform. Thank you.
Okay, we got 5 minutes, around 5 minutes for questions to ask the presenters, Shannan Moore and Laura Carvajal.
First, thank you. I enjoyed your presentations and I'm looking forward to reading your work. Could you each describe or talk about, both of you are personally engaged in the projects. So could you talk about your methodology and how you use your own story, your own responses in combination with other sources to do your work?
So I took a more, what I found to be a critical ethnographic approach in looking at Black Twitter, because I am a participant in Black Twitter. It's easy for me to come with biases, but I also wanted to consider the fact that we come to this space with different ideas and different thoughts and different histories. And I think also just me personally, like I come from a multi-ethnic home. My father is African-American, my mother is Liberian. So I have existed in this like transnational space where Black folk come together with different backgrounds, but we still have to grapple with the world and our ideas of Blackness. Literally in a world that like looks at all of us as Black. But I wanted to do so in a way that decenters whiteness, and I think a lot of the times it is necessary work to focus on the way that whiteness and white supremacy and oppressive systems oppress us, but I think to move forward, we need to look at how we are creating community outside of that. And it can be with each other, it can be with other people who don't look like us, but I think that was my approach in this project.
My methodology, similar kind of to Shannon's, I took an autoethnographic approach. I was very meticulous in embodying myself in the research. I study Anti-Haitinismo, the transnational part that has both for the individuals in country, outside also abroad, and how that exists together. I was very big on bringing myself into the literature. This sounds a little bit corny, but I feel like I want to be the scholar that I needed as an Asian Dominican kid. I have read a lot of the literature, I have engaged with a lot of the movies and literature, and it is always one country damning the other country. So we cannot exist on the island of Hispaniola without each other, regardless of how one country tries to make it seem. So as much as I am in conjunction with the literature, Juno Diaz and everybody to lay the foundations, help my frameworks and help me theorize. I'm also seeking to add my own personal story into it, along with archives, interviews, and throughout my actual thesis, because this is only my first chapter, I am looking at continuing the research on the ground in Dominican Republic and Haiti, the border. I believe I live like 20 minutes from the border, so I am in a village with a highly populated Haitian community. So that was my methodology around this.
Thank you.
Questions?
I'm amazed at both of your work, and you know that because I watched it grow for many years. I have a strange question that just occurred after Lourdes' question, which is, I'm wondering if each of you, or maybe one of you, could speak to how the other person's project might inform your own. That's not your business or your job necessarily, but whether, for example, you can trace anti-Haitinismo in the digital spheres, whether you see anti-Blackness, not just resistance, obviously, in some of those spheres, or if you want to talk about any ways you've already had conversations.
I love that question because when we started this, I remember the first book I read was Dominican from Captain Quinn. And she writes about what it means to be a woman in this very patriarchal society in the Dominican Republic, especially women of color. And when reading that in the second chapter, she actually analyzes and theorizes how Dominican women look like on Facebook, as opposed to Facebook as we know it. And all I could do was send Shannan quotes and page numbers because since she does theorize the digital space, and she theorizes how as Black individuals show up in these digital spaces, I thought that she could also pull on parts of my research, along with I'm not on Twitter, and I was receiving a lot of follow this hashtag, look up this person on Twitter. I do it as far as making Instagram and a Twitter so I can be in the discourse, per Shannan handing that over to me because our projects, although two very different avenues, we have to use each other and they cross over. And the other thing.
Yeah, I just have a very specific example. I feel like either it was in person or I texted her. One part that I'm thinking about in terms of Black identity, the idea that like a lot of Dominicans say I'm not Black, I'm Dominican. And that comes up a lot online and it's a whole meme. So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna be in contact with you about that whole history. Also just wanting to go about it in a way that does not diminish people's experiences. And like, what I love about the one good part about social media is that we get to hear so many people's experiences and like hear their stories. So I wanted to, also include her in that because that history is important too.
Yeah, so there's the next panel coming, so yeah, unfortunately we don't have more time for questions, right?
Yeah,
Next panel.
next panel.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Laura and Shannan. So we're transitioning now to the Summer Institute. Students, come on down. This is for you. Shafika and Lesia. Very good. I will turn it over to you all.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for being here, and thank you for being awake even after such nice lunch.
Yes.
Now, I like to call the summer of 2023 the summer that changed my life, and that's because of the STRC Summer Institute, and I'm sure a lot of my friends are sitting here, and their friends that go to DePaul now will agree, because this summer did change our lives, and for that I would like to thank Professor Julie, Professor Alex, and also Professor Billy, and everyone else who put the effort into it. I've been provided with this amazing opportunity to be this peer leader at the Summer Institute, and I hope to come back every year that I'm in the US
Yes.
and be part of this family and see it grow every day. And with me, I had an amazing team of peer leaders, three of who are not here with us today, but I have my dear friend Gracia, who is also preparing to be an educator. So she was a night peer leader and she was amazing at what she did, and she made life a little bit easier for everyone. And it's so difficult to stay up at night and be there for people. I would like to introduce you all to my friends, people who are here to make a change for themselves. My father always says that when you educate people, you educate the next generation, and I think the Summer Institute helped it be a little bit more easier for my friends. Two of them are my colleagues at the Dry House School of Business, where I'm doing my master's in business analytics with a major in marketing. I would like to introduce you all to Diamond, who is from Chicago. Can you tell she's just 20 and she's doing amazingly phenomenal work right now. She's pursuing her bachelor. She's a first-year student at Dyehouse School of Business, and she's doing her bachelor's in business administration. Wow, that's amazing. And she's also doing a minor in African and Black diaspora studies, which is also amazing. Apart from that, wow, how do you have the time to do all of this? That's amazing. She's also in a fellowship program called the Braven X. She works with the under-resourced communities in Chicago and teaches kids that are in 7th grade. I want to know about that. That sounds tough. And she's also, with doing all of that, she also plans a workout and gym routine and loves to eat out. What do you say is your favorite cuisine so far?
I love soul food. I just love soul food. You know, I'm not from down south. I just love neck rolls and stuff like that. But yeah, that's definitely. I love soul food.
Thank you. I would like to have Gracia join me to introduce our other friends.
Yeah, but before introducing our other panelists, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you, Shafiq, and yes, just again, sharing how STRC and the Summer Institute also changed my life this summer. Like it gave me another focus, and I found like this is my goal. This is what I want to do. So just thank you. I'm so happy to be here and so happy to present Carmen. So Carmen Johnson is a first-year student at DePaul, majoring in African and Black diaspora studies on a pre-law track. She's from Little Rock, Arkansas, but her family currently lives in St. Louis, Missouri. And a fun fact about Carmen is that she graduated high school with her associate's degree and high school diploma. So it's actually a junior in credits. Congratulations. I also am very excited to present you all Taylor Simon. Yeah, she's currently getting her Bachelor's of Science in Psychology with a concentration in cognitive neuroscience and a minor in biology. They are working as a neurofeedback technician and are hoping to obtain their Master's in Psychology Counseling as well as their LPC. Taylor's goal is to support POC, LGBTQ+ communities and children through various modalities of providing mental health. They were born and raised in Chicago. Taylor is inspired by their mother, who immigrated from the Philippines and has worked so hard to provide a good life for her and her family. Taylor hopes to continue towards their goals by regularly getting involved with the STRC and other groups at DePaul. Okay, Taylor.
Last but not the least, and don't go by her look, she's a fiery one, is Nicole Silva. She's currently a junior at DePaul's Dyehouse College of Business, majoring in business administration and minoring in business analytics, which is tough, I must say. I'm doing my master's in it. She is from Mexico and moved to Chicago when she was younger. Do you like it here? Yeah? Yay. After earning her bachelor's degree, she hopes to get hired as a management analyst or as a business consultant. And something that I know personally about Nicole, and I think we all loved at the STRC end of the event, was her poetry. She emotes amazingly through her words, and I hope we get to hear a little bit of it today. And she hopes to publish her book. I promise you I'm going to sign on. So you have to promise me you're going to sign on. Yeah. Yay. So not wasting any more time, let's ask Diamond about her opinion and her views of the STRC Summit.
Well, during my time at the STRC, it was a very enriching experience. I learned a lot personally about African American culture and the Latinx culture. I was educated on the experience about how stories really have preserved our history throughout time. And so that really gave me, it really ignited a fire in me to really dig deep into my personal culture and figure out what it means to be Black and my, the roots behind that. And so it definitely inspired me. And I'm sure, as you guys heard, everyone is.
Thank you. Carmen, what do you say changed about your life when you were at STRC?
So with STRC, that's really the reason that I chose the major that I chose, because going into DePaul, I was really excited to figure out what I wanted to do. I just knew that I was on a pre-law track, but I didn't know how to be there. Like, because I had 2 years on before so I was already like a kid. But with the STRC, you immerse yourself in different cultures, like the Latin culture, like history, and substance. And it was really eye-opening, and I learned more about the ABD program and about all it had to offer, like how to critically pick apart what you read, like things like that, and that's what of course, like the difference, like usually, like they all have like ABD, they all like. Really explain this.
I'm glad you had a good experience. Nicole, what would you say made STRC journey worthwhile for you?
I think the STRC, I really didn't know what to truly expect from it because it was my first time ever doing it. I was just hoping I would make friends or make connections so that I could get along, but not only did I make friends, I made connections with the people in charge of the STRC, and I made lifelong connections with them as well. And I also got to figure out my voice through my writing as well, because I was very doubtful in my skills as a writer. But throughout the experience and journey with the STRC, I got to find my voice and my passion for writing once again.
Can I bother you with reading us a little bit of your poetry?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yes.
So as my final project for the STRC, I wrote a poem that captured my process and my journey back into writing and figuring out who I am and finding my voice. So I will read to you my final project. I am a writer. Uttering those words sends shivers through me. Look at my hands, admire the ink stains in all their glory, as they soak in between every crevice, tracing the outline of my hands, taking a mental picture, young, alive writer, hunched over in bed, feeling every muscle reprimand me. You'll regret this in the morning. Desperately clinging onto every aching cramp, staring from my head down to my feet. A shade of lavender has never looked prettier than how it does when it decorates under my eyes. The cracks that vibrate through me and echo through the room is music to my ears. And just for a moment, I begin with pain. Through the late hours, toothpaste lingers in my mouth but never stays, and sleep comes over my roommate and traps her within her own blankets, as it whispers sweet nothings into her ear until she renders herself powerless and falls into sleep's open arms, a fight we lose every time. The pain in my chest and the pounding in my head serve as a reminder, work is not done. Battling it out with my body to see who will reign supreme, bragging rights included. Sunlight slips in between my blinds and makes its presence known, like a needy child. Through my morning motions, I find myself here, lights too bright for my liking, and a cold that I can never get accustomed to. Do I speak too much? Are you listening? I don't care about my tongue. The reminder of blood pooling in my mouth, spilling down my chin, generations of blood, all from women filled with frightful rage. Its taste I'm all too familiar with. You will listen, and so will I. Mend this bond with stories and fill the gaps as we go, making a garden all of our own. Rich with nutrients streaming through our bodies and minds. Listen. Dance into vulnerability's warm embrace and let it consume you whole, as they are an old friend of mine. Just like you, memories will linger through my head, replaying in a loop in a cycle that never ends.
Even I remember you had quite a journey at STRC, and the Summer Institute was a learning experience for you, and you taught quite a few of us things that we needed to learn about compassion and empathy. So what was STRC for you?
I didn't know I did all that. No, it was really amazing. I'm coming in as an older student. I'm 25. So I came in, knowing what I wanted to do. I was like, okay, I want to get into psychology. I want to get into counseling. This is what I want to do. But doing the STRC, meeting, so many incredible people, talking to so many great professors, hearing from so many speakers, artists, seeing just, incredible places I've seen before, too. But, the biggest thing is that I think being in the STRC, doing the Summer Institute added a new dimension, a fuller dimension to everything that I felt like I was already doing. It added so much joy. I remember my mom and my boyfriend came to pick me up after. They were like, "You look so happy." And I'm like, I guess, yeah. It was great. I had the time of my life. And really, I relate to the sentiment that Nicole said. I felt like a lot of creativity come through during the experience that I thought was just like really wonderful. I was born and raised in Chicago, so there's so many spaces that I've already been that I got to learn so much more about as well. So I want to know more. You guys should be involved in this. It's great. I truly had such an incredible time.
Sweet. Is there some part of your final project you'd like to share?
I said, I don't know how I'm going to. Yeah, I'm happy to if it's good. Oh. Someone has the PowerPoint, but.
Hopefully Alex can share with us.
Working on it.
Perfect.
I remember it was a magazine.
Yeah, so I worked on a zine. Oh, there it is. Yeah, okay, cool. So I worked on a zine as my final project, magazine. So, I did a few pages just kind of like reflecting. Some of it was just notes that I took. This was my front page. I did a little photo manipulation from right underneath the L. And then the water from when we went on an architecture tour. So feel free to go to the next page. Yeah, so I talked about the places we visited, I used pictures that we took, talked about the guest speakers. Going to Paseo Boricua was one of my favorite experiences because of the tour we took with Eduardo Arocho. He, the education that we got on that tour was fantastic. But the really beautiful thing to me was watching him walk through the city. Every single block, someone came to hug him. Someone came to shake his hand. It was incredible. It was such a sense of community that I think I always feel in every part of Chicago, which is of course hyper segregated. So it was just really incredible to see that form of closeness in the city. We're gonna go to the next page. And I wrote a little bit about my Lula, who used to live a block away from DePaul. So I used to run around on the grass, roll down those little hills, which maybe wasn't safe, but I did it anyway. And I just talked about some of the buildings that are around here. She used to live very, very close. I don't remember the exact number anymore, but it was a few years ago, torn down, rebuilt, and I thought that it was pretty indicative of a lot of experiences that I do have in Chicago with culture, things just changing as things become hyper-segregated or have been hyper-segregated. You notice these changes in communities, so I wrote about that. We're going to go to the next one, which I think is my last one, yeah. The best part was just seeing everyone, talking to everyone. There was so much joy that was that. I didn't have a single day where I didn't have a huge, giant smile on my face. So it was just really incredible, and I still talk about it to this day. We were just talking about the bus driver who really took us on a roller coaster. It was fantastic.
Thank you for sharing that. At night, after such power-packed days, when our students returned to their dorms, Gracia was there for them, and she made sure they were safe and comfortable through the night. So Gracia, is there something you'd like to share about the Summer Institute?
Yes. It was my first time really being there for youth, because I had been there for very small children, but it gave me a whole sense of, caring for other people. And for example, the power of being there for someone else than yourself, and how actually that nurtures you too. And it just inspired me to say, this is the thing that I want to be doing. Because I do want to work in education and I do want to be an educator, but I want to do it outside of schooling. So this is exactly the type of scenarios that I want to be at. And it just shed a light on, this is it, this is what I want to do. Yes.
Thank you. Now, it was a learning experience for everyone that was part of it. Coming back, Diamond, I want to know, would you mind sharing your project with us?
Of course, so basically for my final project, I was really struggling because I really didn't know what to do. I had wrote, an essay basically in capturing everything that I experienced at STRC. I didn't bring it with me, but, I definitely, talked about the importance of the DePaul Museum that we saw on the south side. Just being able to go to that museum and see all the trauma and all the, you know, I wanna say, the pain and the sorrow that you see from the imagery on the walls and the sculptures in the museum. But I left feeling triumphant because even though my ancestry, we've experienced a lot of trauma, we are able to now, you know, I'm able to walk on the ground and be able to create new opportunities and open the doors for, you know, the generations behind me. So it really gave me encouragement to really go for the opportunities that I want to and explore that and find a way to, you know, offer my, you know, the Black experience in whatever room I step in. So it really validated me and let me know that I'm here for a reason, I have purpose, and I think that was one of the greatest things about STRC was I found purpose in being Black and being, you know, the purpose of my perspective and what it offers to the community at large. So I definitely got that in my paper, and it definitely spoke to the experience that I had. It was really a really great one, and yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Carmen, now we know you want to talk about your final project. We want to know all about it, so we're excited to know how did that shape up for you?
Okay, so for my final project for Streak, I did a podcast with 3 other people that I get to Streak experience. 2 of which are now my really good friends, like we do everything together, lunch, dinner, like explore Chicago, everything. So that basically, we just basically summarized our experience, like walking through the mural, like our boat ride, and everything like that. And basically, like how much fun we had in the street. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the first 2-3 days wore me out. Like, I'm not the one person who getting up at like the crack of dawn, and who was coming back that night. Everyone was like, you know, come outside, like, stay with us, you know. But like, I really appreciated the experience, and actually, like, us doing that podcast for Streak, we actually do a podcast now every other fall. So it actually started to like do a podcast every other fall. It's called Different World. It's we do it every Saturday, so it's in every fall night. But that really sparked us to like continue because basically what we did was show our experience from a Black point of view, which is basically what we're doing on our podcast, you know, it's just like talk about everything that happens in like a Black community. And I thought that's really important because coming to a PWI, the thing I was most concerned about was finding my community on campus. And I think that's what a lot of PLCs are concerned about, and things like that. So I definitely found like the best group of friends ever. And Street, you know, I would not have found them online without Street. So I would love the experience. I love the experience.
Hey, thank you.
What's the podcast again? The podcast title?
A Different World.
A Different World.
So Different World is a new podcast that we're gonna start listening to on Radio DePaul. Yes.
Okay.
So I'm gonna ask a more difficult question that I'm gonna ask these students because when I asked this question to myself, it took me a minute to even absorb what I'd experienced through that week. So what would you say was your best experience about this STRC Summer Institute? One place you went to, one lunch you had. Yeah.
I'll say for me, the best experience I had was when we were, I think it was on a Wednesday of the week, and, Dr. Betts, we were going over Inside the Joy, the chapter of the book that we were supposed to read for the following morning, and just the richness and level of the conversation that we were having in the classroom was unlike any conversation I ever had in any academic room. And so it really, I don't know, it really fed my spirit because it let me know that there's actually people out here that are not like me, that understand and care about my perspective and want to shine light on it. And so it was great to interact with all the different members of STRC and be able to have such a enriching experience with, we're all from different cultures. I think a little bit of the conversation we had was about, we had went to the Gerber Hart Library, and just how, I was talking about my experience as a Christian, some of my, my Christian beliefs clashes with the beliefs of somebody from the LGBT, but for me, it's really important for me to include the perspective of people from the LGBT community, because even though I'm a Christian, so I believe that God loves everyone, and so knowing that He created everyone, so it's important to include everyone into any conversation and build that community in all these different spaces.
Okay. Carmen, what would you say?
That's hard. I would say our mural walks were probably my favorite. I love the art in Chicago. Like where I'm from is more graffiti. And like during my historical class, like we have went on another mural walk, and like our tour guide had differentiated between murals and graffiti. And where I'm from is more graffiti, but the murals here, they used to carry the strong message. And I think one of the murals, Dennis Moore, we talked about a little bit, and he basically just like the murals and really much more about I think the murals. I'm very privileged on this.
Nicole, what was it for you?
The first thing that pops into mind is just us being in the classroom and going through the readings that were assigned to us and just meeting with people. And I think what made us stick with me in particular was meeting Mark Picot. He is amazing. I think he really inspired me to take that leap of faith to start writing again. And it's kind of funny because after he left, he's a very serious guy, and he's just like, if you compliment him, he's like, shut up, no, I'm not that kind of guy. He's not only like extremely talented, but he's very humble, he's very hilarious. And when he left, literally we were all like, oh my God, like what just happened? Like it was just life-changing, the way just hearing him speak to us and him reading his like writing. We were all like almost in tears, but we knew that if we were to cry in front of him, he'd be making fun of us. But that just really stuck with me. And also just in general, whenever we would just sit in the classroom and talk about certain writings or passages that we read, we would get sentimental. I know we had like a moment where we were almost all in tears because we were getting into deep conversations. And I think that's what I truly cherish out of this whole experience with everyone. We got closer and got to gain so much insight into different cultures and communities. And it's great that it was such a safe space, and that's something that I'm never going to take for granted. I had such a safe space with STRC, and I think that's what I cherish about everything.
What are your last words?
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of spoke on it already, but Eduardo's walking tour in Paseo Boricua, really it was just another emphasis that like there are so many avenues to continue like strengthening like cultural history in Chicago, which is truly amazing. My second favorite thing though is walking with Gracia in the morning to get Starbucks. That makes me talk for the whole day. It was
Gracia, what would you say was your favorite time?
I wasn't prepared for the question.
Off the top of your head.
The whole week, I mean, no,
You can pick something, yeah, it's difficult.
Yes. I love being there when Taylor got a little sick. It was this thing of being for someone else that wasn't myself.
Oh, thank you. On behalf of the students that were part of the STRC and us, the peer leaders and mentors.
Please, I just want to ask them one last question. And maybe you don't have to answer it just right now, but then if not, think about it. So we've talked about how it made an impact on you and how you also connected maybe with your history, with your identity, with who you've been in the past. But now, what is or what's coming for the future? So for example, Carmen told us that they started this podcast. And Nicole is back to writing, and she also do poetry and things like that. But what else is coming for you in the future? I think a key thing of this kind of experiences is keeping them fresh. So this is what I learned. This was my dive into the past, into myself and all my experiences. But now, what am I going to do with it? So I'm curious to know, what are you going to do with it? What are you already doing? Or what are you thinking about doing?
Well, I want to, be one of the little peer mentors next year.
Yes.
So hopefully I can continue to stay involved in the STRC, but really for me, just I'm continuing working. I work as a neurofeedback tech, so making sure that I am including all of these identities in my role working with clients is just incredibly important to me. So I think I'm going to continue doing that and just seeing what my options are, what's available.
Kind of like Taylor said, I'm going to be a mentor next year because the STRC was just such a great experience and be happy to have this whole experience. I think what I'm going to take out of the STRC is that I have an appreciation not only for my background and my culture, my identity, but for others as well. And I know there's a lot of moments where I had to take a step back and I was like, oh wow, I didn't know about any of this, because I feel like most of us were in our own little world or our own bubble. We're just like, okay, yes, I know about me, but look around, there's so many other people who have different stories to tell, and it's just a matter of time to figure it out. So I think what I'm going to take out of it, what I'm going to continue to do for the future, is to listen to other people's stories, even if it's not similar to mine. I want to listen, I want to hear, and I'm going to continue writing as well.
So for me, coming out of strict, what I want to take with me is sometimes when you go to other people's experiences, I feel like coming to DePaul is important to be open-minded, hear other people's stories, because I feel like you should bring people next time. I've never been in an environment like DePaul where it's so open-minded.
We go with them. Diamond, what are you going to ask?
Yeah, just to piggyback off what Taylor and Nico and everyone just said so far, basically preserving our stories. That's definitely what I want to take with me into my future, whatever endeavor I go into. I want to preserve my stories, and one thing I'm trying to do at my job now is I want to, teach in the 7th graders how to own their stories, how to articulate, how to communicate the different backgrounds and stories that we have, and also appreciate, because I feel like, especially in those beginning middle school ages, everyone's trying to build each other, trying to mimic each other, and so I think it's very important that, I'm trying to use what I learned at the STRC and showing them that it's okay to own who you are, be different, even if we're all Black, like they said, we all have different variations of Black, what that looks like to us, so we have to honor that, so that definitely is something I want to keep pushing. For sure.
I think it was a learning experience for all of us, and I think I can speak for all the students that were part of it, that the motherly instinct of Professor Judy, the friend in Professor Billy, and the amazing, amazing mentor in Alex helped us all shape and be better people ourselves, and helped us try to be part of a change. The STRC Summer Institute is 2 years down, it's got more than 100 more to go, hopefully, fingers crossed. You're creating a team of leaders that will hopefully one day be able to sit here and watch new students take our place. I would like to end this, I'm sorry we took up a little more time, And I could go all evening talking about STRC and our experiences here, but I'd like to end this by a poem that I wrote, which says, "Reasons, seasons in and through, wilting now to bloom anew." And thank you. This is Shafika, and I'm signing off for STRC.
This was amazing.
Thank you so much.